If prophecy falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, is it still prophecy? Real question. Yes? Okay. No? Do I have any no's over here? Okay. Okay. I'm not completely sure what speeches or addresses you watched or boycotted this past week, but since I haunt many of you on social media, I have a pretty good idea that several of you were boycotting at least one specific address. So this morning, as we near the end of our starry season of Epiphany, and as we approach the start of our shadowy season of Lent, and as we gather on this first Sunday with our senior minister away on her 4-month sabbatical adventure, I'd like to offer you a little bit of a state of our union address. That being the state of our union with God and the state of our union with one another. It will be incomplete, but it will be imaginative. But first, some business. Tomorrow will mark 1 week since Ravi Ragbir, Executive Director of the New Sanctuary Coalition, was released from immigration detention by a beautifully worded court order. I was going to ask for an amen, but you gave it to me. Amen. And tomorrow will be 4 days away from Ravi's next hearing on February 9th, which could still result in a February 10th deportation. I point out this very real possibility, not to bring us down, but to invite us into the realm of real imagination. The realm of real imagination is a realm that nudges us further, beckons us beyond, and points toward unexpected possibilities. But the realm of real imagination is also a realm that does not ignore the often disappointing realities of life as it is. So today's really imaginative ancient testimony is not a gospel story that gets retold very often. It's not a greatest hit. This is the presentation of Jesus narrative, a snippet that doesn't appear in any other gospel. It's a perfect example of how Luke's gospel narrative goes to great lengths to literarily set Jesus up not only as a leader to be revered, followed, and protected, but it also paints Jesus as a leader whose prophetic call is made possible through the steady, sometimes even uncelebrated prophetic witness of countless others around him. And Luke's gospel wants to do this in detail. Instead of just starting in the middle of the story with a grown-up, fully formed, adulting Jesus fishing for disciples, making miracles, and whipping up wedding wine, Luke's gospel wants us to get inside the real, day-to-day, nitty-gritty human life of Jesus. And Luke's gospel doesn't skip over anything. So while we all float in this liminal middle week between Ravi's release and his next hearing, while we celebrate Ravi's win and mourn the fact that our friend and new sanctuary leader Jean remains deported in Haiti, while we enter our first of 4 months without our senior minister, instead of going straight from glittery Christmas to triumphant Easter this year, I want us to spend this Sunday here in the in-between space with a little baby Jesus, the human son of a very, very poor migrant couple who've come to the Jerusalem temple in order to do the real nitty-gritty things that real nitty-gritty Jewish folks did in ancient times. Jesus is being presented at the temple, and Jesus is being circumcised. You can't get much realer or nitty-gritty than that. So with many stories in Luke's gospel, like this one, we are invited to witness the real, mundane things that happen while mythical, larger-than-life leaders are being made. Sure, there are also lots of mystical things in this gospel for skeptics to dismiss and for modern science to prove less than feasible, but Luke's gospel, even as it attempts to convince leaders and readers of the unbelievable, even as it asks readers to consider the ultimate impossibility of bodily resurrection, Luke's gospel also shows us that the everyday work beneath the mythology, the mundanity hovering just below the legendary, is what makes the more fiery prophetic moments possible. So we come to the prophet Anna. Did you know about her before? Okay. Don't you just love the way that she's introduced? There was also a prophet. Oh, by the way, Anna. She gets 3 verses dedicated to her. 4 short little sentences in which we learn that she's a freaking prophet, that she's a widow, that she's 84, and that apparently she never leaves the temple. Great setup. And then the writer of Luke's gospel summarizes what she says. She doesn't even get quoted. But this detail that Anna never leaves the temple fascinates me. Anna, not even celebrated enough to get her own monologue, Anna is steadily, every day, keeping the temple in order. Every once in a while, she gets to proclaim something huge, like the fact that a visiting baby is going to be legendary when he grows up. But her power to proclaim is made possible through her steady, dedicated, mundane work. Still, I can't help but feel disappointed by the gospel writer's failure to give Anna some quotable lines. So when some writers let you down, other writers lift you up. And somebody who has been doing that for me for decades is Ursula K. Le Guin. Tell me if you know about Ursula K. Le Guin. Okay, awesome. If you do not know about Ursula K. Le Guin, we will have lots of fun after the service. Please come and find me. Le Guin died 2 weeks ago at the age of 88, 4 years older than our paraphrased prophet Anna. And when Le Guin died on January 22nd, right as we were in the midst of our most recent disappointments with Jean and Ravi, I thought, oh, perfect. Le Guin's writings are exactly what I need right now. Escapism, science fiction, fantasy, take me away, Ursula. And I picked up several of my Le Guin favorites and began to hungrily rediscover them, but I had forgotten something. Le Guin's writings are elaborate, fantastical fictions, but they are also deeply rooted in the nitty-gritty realities of this world's problems, real shortcomings, real disappointments. Great. Thanks, Ursula. So I needed something else, something light, something ethereal, something a bit abstract. And luckily, Le Guin was also obsessed with the 2,500-year-old Tao Te Ching. She translated it in 1998, although she said she rendered it. So I opened up my copy and found exactly what I needed for this in-between time. In Le Guin's rendition of one little section of the Tao Te Ching, the truly prophetic work of leadership is made plain. And I know we read it together a few minutes ago, but get it out in front of you again. True leaders are hardly known to their followers. Next after them are the leaders the people know and admire. After them, those they fear. After them, those they despise. To give no trust is to get no trust. When the work's done right, with no fuss or boasting, ordinary people say, "Oh, we did it." When Jean and Ravi were detained, when these two out front, outspoken leaders were snatched away from their coalition of supporters, those supporters, the ordinary people, kicked into gear. I've never heard Jean or Ravi call themselves prophets, but the air that has surrounded them as visible leaders of New Sanctuary has pushed them continually into prophetic spaces. Telling their own stories and connecting their stories to the stories of others has brought prophetic fire to their immigration work. Now, these days, especially in unstable political times, the words prophet and prophetic are kind of thrown around a lot. But here's how I ground them for myself. I don't think of prophet as being an identity one can master. I think one moves toward propheticness if the collection of actions one takes is consistently modeling potential change. Prophetic action can only happen in community. So I'm going to give my own answer away. If no one hears the prophecy, I don't think it's prophecy. Prophetic action is interested in the state of our unions, the state of our union with God and the state of our union with one another. And I dare say, if we take care of the state of this union is a whole lot better off and pretty fine. And prophetic action never calls itself prophetic action. It often just looks like everyday action. And it's definitely better just to do the work and let others worry about calling it prophetic. As we approached this current Black History Month, I was sitting with the legendary civil rights activist Ruby Sales, and I was choosing my words carefully because I get very nervous and mealy-mouthed whenever I'm talking to Ruby Sales. And I mumbled something about her work being prophetic, and she stopped me in the way that only Ruby Sales can stop somebody. And she said, "Martin Luther King was a prophet. I am a historian." I asked if it were all right if I still called her work prophetic, and she rolled her eyes, which I took as being annoyed prophetic approval. And I agree with Ruby Sales. She's a historian, and she's a darn good one at that. But to my mind, the two aren't mutually exclusive. Her historian work is prophetic to me because it is focused on the state of the union of Black people and their struggle. She doesn't need to claim the title of prophet because her everyday actions are consistently prophetic. Her everyday actions are dedicated to strengthening the state of the unions between people. Now, steady, everyday actions create prophecy. They don't simply imagine what is possible, they model what is possible. And the simple power of this modeling can be easily overshadowed. In the fear-filled wake of the 2016 election, many of you know that the New Sanctuary Coalition began to expand its programs further than they had been doing in years past. And they were sending dozens of people to ICE check-in accompaniments. They were building a weekly legal clinic to walk people through asylum applications. And they were holding weekly community meetings where immigrants share information, stories, and solidarity. And for many, this expansion of programs looked a bit mundane. While we feared that prophetic systemic change was stalled completely for the next 4 years, it looked like we were moving into simpler, nitty-gritty, on-the-ground, day-to-day, one-on-one charity work. And no one said New Sanctuary shouldn't do this. But there was a bit of general disappointment about potential prophetic fire getting lost in all the quotidian community charity. But then our leaders got detained. And over the past month, the fiery prophetic power that has been churning beneath all of this charity work was uncovered and made plain. See, something happens when you pull people together and invite them to accompany one another through fear and injustice. Something happens when you are a leader who is leading by telling others that they have the power to lead themselves. And here's, in my mind, what happens. When you get snatched away from that community, you have created a leader-full movement that didn't know it was a movement until it had to move. And now, ICE might be able to deport individuals, but ICE cannot deport an entire movement. Because this movement is moving. This movement is on the move. It is so much bigger than the leaders who were out in front. All of the folks who were behind those leaders over the last year, they are stepping up to the front, laying their bodies on the line, and it is a movement that moves everywhere. They have been preparing for it through the mundane, everyday, ordinary people, charity stuff of accompaniments, paperwork, and community meetings. And this new coalition, led mostly, I might add, by fierce, fiery women, Anna would be proud, they moved a media machine that is now unstoppable. They moved hundreds of people to rallies and press conferences. They moved all kinds of organizations toward them as a new axis that is the centerpiece that connects different organizations to other organizations. And with the expertise of a female-led legal team and a female judge, they moved Ravi out of detention. Prophecy is not just words that come out of a leader's mouth. Prophecy is the cumulative actions of a community, actions that nurture the state of our unions with God and with one another. And here in this space, this congregation, creates a playground for prophecy, meeting one another at these tables, singing, eating, talking, doing all those things that look mundane to all of those people who would dismiss what we're doing. Even the most legendary prophetic historical moments that this congregation has nurtured have found their true power in the everyday, quiet passion of communal work. Those who drove the Prostitution Project bus, those who connected countless women to safe abortions through the clergy consultative service, and those who continue our reproductive justice work today, those who connected countless patients to the AIDS Resource Center, and those who continue that work at Bailey House today, those who started to put together little kits of safer sex and safer injection doodads. Sorry, Kim. I don't know if you would call them doodads. I just did. This list goes on. And prophetic work isn't perfect. It can't be. It is imaginative and short-sighted. It is steady, and it needs steady critique. We don't call ourselves prophets here because we, at our best and in the tradition of the prophet Anna, simply want to consistently meet in this temple and get work done. The state of our union with God is found only in the consistently reassessed state of our union with one another. We are ordinary people, and we are leaders, and every so often together, we get to say, oh, we did that. What's next? So what is the state of your union with all of this? Do you have questions? Do you have fears? Do you have ideas and critiques that might reshape the work we're doing here, that might inform the prophecy we're playing with? Talk to me. Talk to Valerie, but most importantly, talk to each other. Movements only move when ordinary people make motion. So make a move. Our union here is how we nurture our union with God. So as we gather our elements for our communion moment, check in with one another. Check in on the state of your unions. Because what we're doing right here is the only way we can see the state of our union here. Go for it. I'll call us back together in a moment.